to another episode of the Fleet Legends interview series, where experience takes the driver's seat. Sure, the world never stops changing, but one thing you can always count on is the power of hard earned wisdom. This series, sponsored by Legend Fleet, spotlights the leaders who've paved the way fleet managers, innovators, and longtime pros who've shaped this industry with decades of insight. These are the stories that bridge the past and the future, packed with practical advice and memorable lessons every fleet pro should hear. I'm Lauren Fletcher, Bobbitt's VP of Content, and your host for today's conversation. Over the years covering the fleet industry, I've learned how important it is to preserve this legacy, to listen, learn, and pass it on.
Creating a better day for the legends of the road with the non-slip van floors, protective interior liners, and full range of work van accessories. Trusted by major OEMs and fleets all across North America and Europe.
Today's guest is one of our fleet legends, Scott Rood. His career is full of the kinds of experiences you just can't Google. Scott, let's start at the beginning. What first pulled you into the world of fleet, and how did that journey evolve into the career you have today?
It started actually in high school. When I was in high school, I went part time to what they call as a skill center to learn automotive. I did that my junior and senior year. Going into my senior year, I decided that I'm going to join the Air Force. So I went ahead and signed up for the Air Force, and I selected to come in as a general purpose vehicle mechanic. So that's how I got started, and I did spend 22 years in the Air Force, worked my way up through the ranks, and when I left the Air Force, I was the vehicle maintenance manager for Holloman Air Force Base. So had a very wonderful Air Force career, and then once I got out of the Air Force, I started work for the state of Washington. I was their shop supervisor at in the Olympia area. I worked there for about 4 years, and then I moved to Clark Public Utilities, utility company. I was the fleet and warehouse supervisor. And then I moved on to Clark County, where I was the fleet manager for 8.5 years. And then I decided I'm going into consulting. So I started work with Mercury Associates with Paul Loria. And just recently, about a year ago, I came over to RTA. And that's pretty much my career in fleet. I always liked vehicles. As you can tell, it started out in high school. So it was, in the early days, it wasn't as well defined as it is today. We got a very, very good network of, peers out there, a lot of industry knowledge that you can take advantage of. But, like I said, it evolved over the years.
That is definitely quite a career. I think, in that time, I'm sure you saw a number of changes. What were some of the more significant changes you've seen since you started in fleet?
Well, the vehicles are a lot more complicated these days. When I started in fleet, we had electronic ignition, where today, no computerized systems on the vehicles. So, today, I mean, you could have 3-4 different computer systems on a vehicle, giving you all kinds of data. The industry has made it easier, in my opinion, to troubleshoot with all the scan tools you can use and the information you're getting from the vehicles. Because back in the day, you had to look, listen, and smell to kind of figure out what was wrong with a vehicle. Another big change was the fleet information systems. When I first came in the Air Force, we wrote everything down on paper, and then somebody key punched everything into this machine, and we had to send those cards out and get them, into some type of organization, and then we got the listings back for our PM dues, and all of our work order was digitized. So the computer systems really helped with the industry.
It's interesting to think about that. The so much more tech, it's made things a little bit easier to analyze, to get that data. But I'm sure it's also impacted the number of people coming into the industry, because it's not like you can wrench on those cars in your garage as easy as it was in the past.
No, it's not. I mean, it's we're very computerized now. It's a very technical. technical field. The old days of calling us grease monkeys, so to speak, and those are in the past. I mean, we actually we very very technical. I mean, we are looking at data on screens, and really troubleshooting vehicles. It's a lot more complex, a lot more detailed. The equipment is very specialized. It just takes a certain person coming into the career field to actually take the time, go to school. I mean, you can still learn in an internship, but I feel that you should go to some type of tech school to learn all the basics. Learning in your garages is not going to cut it anymore.
Yeah. And I can imagine you faced quite a few challenges over the decades that you've been doing fleet. Are there any that really stand out that you could share about how you overcame it and that our new fleet managers would learn something from?
Well, back several years ago when I was with the county, I submitted my budget. I submit my budget every year. But what happened that year, there was a vehicle, that the cost increase was more than what I budgeted for. So I had to go back to my leadership and sell them on or explain to them where it came from, what happened, and to get additional funds so we could make the purchases that year for those vehicles. So just watching the industry, I should have been a little bit more proactive and went out there and looked to see what they were thinking as far as what the new model year vehicles were going to cost. So that was a big that was a big experience. So from that point on, I really got more involved into really looking at what the industry was going to charge, what I thought the increase was going to be, and kind of better map that out instead of just going with a generic. Yeah, it's going to be about 3 to 4%. In that year it was 14%. So I was way over budget. So I I had to correct that.
So let's talk about some lessons. What are some of the most important lessons that you feel like you've learned in fleet that you think are really crucial for new or even veteran fleet managers to understand?
The main thing is don't be afraid to take risk. Everyone, if you keep it safe, you don't get in trouble. But if you don't take risks, then you're not going to grow. You're not going to better the fleet. Um, a lot of new fleet managers they want to avoid conflict. Now, conflict is it's good and it can be healthy. It just needs to be conducted in a very safe and very upfront manner. Don't try to get personal, basically, and so that happens a lot. A lot of new fleet managers they come from within. So, one day they're a peer, now the next day they're the boss, and that can be a little intimidating. Because you're the boss now, and you're supervising the guys that used to be your friend. So I think new fleet managers really need some type of supervisory training to overcome that aspect of the job.
It reminds me of an old quote. It's often misattributed to Winston Churchill. I don't think they've actually been able to find where it's come from, but it was, if there's two people in business that always agree, one of them is unnecessary. And I think that really kind of leads to that you got to be comfortable with confrontation and be able and willing to disagree. But again, as you were saying, do it professionally and do it in a way that is, aiming to solve problems and work together.
That is correct. Yes. But yeah, I don't know that quote.
It's one of my favorites. I love it. I always thought it was a Churchill quote, but in some research, it is not. So, we're going to do a quick time machine here. If you could go back in time, what's one thing you really wish you would have known when you first started out?
I wish I would have spent more time learning to be a better writer. I always thought that was one thing that kept me back. So, because you do have to do a certain amount of writing when you're in fleet. Either you're writing policies, you're writing procedures. I just, I wish I would have spent a little bit more time on the writing side, but I spent a lot of time on the technical side, which I think was good at the time. But once you make that transition from the shop floor into management, you really need to work on your people skills, your writing skills, your communication skills, and really reinvest yourself into those type of soft skills versus the technical skills that you're used to training on.
I love it. Being really well rounded in the industry is very important.
Yes, very.
So, from your perspective, are there some rookie mistakes that you're seeing new fleet managers making that you would really recommend they steer clear of?
I go in and look at a lot of fleets, and what they do is they kind of one thing is the rate setting. They're not annually going and really calculating out what their shop labor rates are, what their parts markup should be, the sublets, fuel. So what they're doing is a lot of fleets are just saying, well, we used to be $60 an hour. I think that's wrong. I think it should be 90. And they're not actually going in and pulling out the budget and really calculating it out the right way to figure out what all those costs are, what the markup should be, and really getting involved in that process. They usually rely on finance or somebody else to calculate those for them, and they're really not getting a true number, in my opinion.
Looking at some best practices, thinking about what's really worked well, what practices or innovations have you found to be the most effective in managing a successful fleet?
The first one that comes to mind is your fleet availability, because if the vehicle's in the shop, it's not doing your users or not doing your customers any good. You also want to look at your technicians, not just how productive they are. I mean, they can put time on a work order, but is that time efficient and effective? Meaning, are they taking 2 hours to do an hour job or 4 hours to take a 2 hour job? And then, on the other side of it, are they too quick? Meaning they're getting the job done really quick. They're beating their standard repair times. However, they have a high comeback rate. So we really need to look at all three of those. The time on the work order, direct hours on the work order. Are they meeting standard repair times? And if they're meeting standard repair times, is the vehicle staying out of the shop?
Oh, that's some great advice. What about technology? I mean, we kind of started this conversation about changes, and technology was one of the things that you brought up. It has definitely come a long way. How has it changed fleet management, and what advancements have really been the most game changing to you?
That would be in the telematics, because we can put telematics on vehicles. We can monitor operator behavior, with the telematics. We can get alerts as far as, speeding, harsh braking, and driver behavior. So we can kind of educate our drivers on how to be better at their jobs. Also, we can look at utilization. How often is that vehicle on the road? How many miles is it driven? With utilization, a lot of my colleagues will say, yeah, if it doesn't drive a certain number of hour or miles a year, do we really need it? And I kind of disagree with that, not fully, but if that vehicle's out on a job every day, but it doesn't go very far, that's still utilization. So with telematics, we can go ahead and we can monitor utilization as well. We can also look at fuel efficiency, idle. How long is the vehicle idling for? So really putting telematics into the vehicle really helps the fleet manager in managing his fleet.
Scott, thank you so much for sharing your incredible journey and insights with us today. So, it's conversations like these that remind us why preserving and passing down this kind of knowledge is so critical for the future of fleet management. To everyone watching, we'd love to hear your thoughts. What stood out to you? Who else should we spotlight in future episodes of the Fleet Legends series? Drop your comments below and join the conversation. And don't forget, there's more wisdom and inspiration coming your way, so stay tuned.